Good morning, I'm Tom Kline. Welcome to Strategies to Build Trust and De-escalate Customer Problems. So when you have a problem with a customer, I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide on how to resolve it. So first thing is, where do complaints come from? Complaints come from, of course, they come from everywhere, but most of them do come from internet reviews. Some people write direct correspondence. There are a few service complaints. If you're not handling your customer problems, you're going to get some complaints from regulators, from lawyers, and then there's always the stealth customer that you don't even know is a problem, but they all of a sudden appear. And when you're dealing with customer problems, you need to change the paradigm in your store. So often I hear, we did nothing wrong. The customer lied on the credit application, or the customer couldn't qualify for the RV. We did nothing wrong. It doesn't matter who's right and who's wrong. What matters is that you satisfy the customer's problem, because otherwise these problems become bigger and bigger. There's a notion in running a business, in the loss control portion of your business, that your first loss is your best loss. And what that means is that when you spend money early to get these problems resolved, it's going to be the least amount of money that you spend. If you let the problem linger, the problem gets more and more as expensive as time goes on. Fixing these problems truly is money in the bank, because it increases your repeat business and saving time and money. So the first thing is that when you're thinking about a customer problem, how upset are they? This is a graphic I got when I bought my new toaster. And I like to say, you need to determine whether they're level 1 toast or they're level 6 toast. Are they just burnt, pissed, and not interested? Because the level 6 toast will require you to spend more time with them than the level 1 toast customers. So let's hop right in here, talk about how to listen. So the first thing in solving a customer problem is bonding with the customer, making the customer like you. You have to find common interests. And when the customer comes into your office, and I always say that it's best to have them come into your office, very, very difficult to resolve a problem on the phone, very, very difficult to resolve a problem through email. So when they're in your office, don't underestimate the value of chit chat. Take as long as necessary. If you rush, you will appear disingenuous, and you don't want to do that. So when the customer tells you about their problem, you want to write everything down that they say, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Understand that inflammatory comments are coming your way. The customer is going to tell you how to run your business. Stay calm. Don't take the bait. Don't get upset over what they say. Remember, they're venting and they have a problem they want you to fix. So you need to emphasize, your problem is important to me and I want to help you. How to listen. Be quiet. We all make the mistake of talking too much and not listening enough. Bond. Be relaxed in your body language. Nod. If they say something, again, inflammatory, don't take the bait. Stay calm. Continue to emphasize that you're important, your problem is important to me, and that I want to help you resolve your problem. At the first meeting, you want to listen to what they say, take notes, invest the time. When you're listening to the customer, have them write down every single thing. You write down every single thing the customer says. And at the end, you read the notes back. And what that does is it lets the customer know that they're important and that you're listening. And after you've read the notes back, you ask them, did I miss anything? I took 7 or 8 pages of notes here. This will help them feel heard. It's part of the disarming process, right? When somebody feels heard, they begin to let their guard down, and then you can begin to try to resolve whatever the problem is. Don't underestimate nodding and telling them that the problem is important to you. Label feelings at the first meeting. I wouldn't want to go through that, and that's hard and that's aggravating. Things like that, when you're labeling what someone is feeling, you are also committing to them and showing them empathy and understanding. Don't necessarily feel compelled that you need to fix the problem at the first meeting. Make sure you understand what the problem is, and then set a time for a second meeting. Set the expectations and say, hey, I got my 7 pages of notes here. I appreciate everything you told me. I need to go back and do some research and check what happened on our end of things. And at our second meeting, you can say, at our second meeting, we'll be able to go over a solution, or at the second meeting, I may have some more questions for you. You'll have to determine the pace of that based on what the customer's problem and how complex it is. To be or not to be, don't, at any meeting, don't be defensive. Don't tell half-truths. Be true to your word, and if there are perceptions that the customer has, correct them right then and there, correct them immediately. If the dealership made some errors, then correct those errors at the first meeting. Let them know that that was a mistake. That way, when they come back for the second meeting, they're not expecting that to be part of the solution. Assure the customer that you want to resolve the problem, but at the same time, don't overpromise. And if you say you're going to call them in between meetings, make sure you call them. That can be, you could have built some trust during the first meeting, but if you say you're going to call them by noon on Friday, make sure you call them by noon on Friday, because if you don't, you will have lost any of the trust that you gained. How to irritate a customer guaranteed. Number 1 is failure to set expectations. Brag. I've seen dealers say things like, you know, I have enough money. I don't have to fix your problem. These don't work. Be inefficient. Pretend it's not your fault. It doesn't matter whether you created the problem. Someone at your dealership created the problem, so it is the dealership's fault, and you need to own that problem. Breaking promises, being insensitive to the customer, ignoring their core issues. If you try to resolve a side issue instead of their main issue, it's not going to go well. Using the words, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you feel that way is like saying the way you feel isn't justified, but I'm just humoring you by apologizing. If you need to apologize, apologize. Don't be disingenuous, and that'll come across disingenuous. Lack focus. You know, check your watch, have your leg jumping up and down. These are all nonverbal ways of saying to the customer that you're not important. At the second meeting, if you have a second meeting, you'll want to gather final information. You'll come up with some questions based on what you have found through your research. So when you take the story back and then you go to the people who are involved, you're going to find out more information. That may be very revealing in the facts that come out. So the second meeting may be nothing more than gathering final information and achieving understanding about where you are. But the facts have to come out. Jack Webb back in the 60s, this is an old show called Dragnet, Just the Facts, Ma'am. The facts have to come out, and the facts matter. When you're resolving an issue with the customer, you have to go back to what happened and what the facts are, because that's the basis with which that you will build on a solution. If necessary, when you're meeting with the customer, create documentation. For example, if text messages are involved, then print those text messages out. Show the customer the text messages. They won't remember. And if they said something in those text messages that proves your case, so much the better. When you're going over the facts, give them quietly, calmly, and without tone to challenge their assertions and say, here's kind of what I found, Mr. Customer. You know, here's what it is. very slowly, very quietly. And if you can't prove the dealership's position, then be creative. It'll depend on what the facts are, will depend on your creativity there. Never give a customer originals. I learned that the hard way. When you're showing them documents, give them copies. I had a customer take originals, rip them in half, and then say, so now what are you going to do? My mistake. I said, you know what? You won this round. But use your documentation as leverage. At the second meeting, if mistakes happen, acknowledge them. Say, hey, we made a mistake here. People are so afraid to say you made a mistake because the customer may use that as leverage, and they might use that as leverage. But acknowledging mistakes makes you human and trustworthy. And if you did a good job building rapport in the first meeting, then you can use some of that rapport now as your own leverage. Say you're sorry. Disarm by telling the truth. Let the customer continue to vent if that's necessary. But if the customer says the same thing over and over, you need to say, Mr. Customer, let's stop. I want to focus on, I know we made a mistake in the past, and I hear your frustrations, and you pull out your 7 pages of notes, say, remember, I have 7 pages of notes. I want to focus on what's going to make you happy. I don't want the customer to say the same thing over and over because they'll wear a groove and they won't be able to get out of that circular thinking. So you want to get them off of that and move forward. At the second meeting, ask lots of questions and be creative. If I could do this, would that make you happy? If I could buy the unit back at X dollars, including for a profit for the dealer, would that interest you? You don't tell them about the profit, by the way. What if I provided a service credit for you? What if I could sell you a different unit and take yours on trade-in? I've used the bottom one very often. How would you feel if I were your personal concierge during your ownership experience and you could call me with any problem, right? It's pampering. It makes them feel good. So be creative when you're thinking about solutions. When you get to the third meeting, if you go that long, that's when you get the customer buy-in, achieve mutual understanding. So I always advocate that you present 2 or more solutions. The reason when you present 2 solutions is the customer doesn't feel like you're shoving a solution down their throat. They get to make a choice and be creative based on their concerns. Economic inequities are okay. So you say to them, okay, Mr. Customer, I've heard you. Here are 2 solutions. I'll either give you a service credit in our service department for $750, or I'll make one payment for you of $557.10 or whatever it is. Don't feel like the solutions have to be the exact same. Whatever solution you come up with, they may choose the lower one. It's very interesting that happens, and you'll be surprised if you use this solution. If there's not a meeting at the third, if there's not a meeting of the minds at the third meeting, no problem. Schedule another meeting. Emphasize that you want to satisfy the customer. Always act with kindness, and a solution will present itself. If there's no resolution, be patient, be kind, be understanding. There's a Creole word called lagniappe, L-A-G-N-I-A-P-P-E, pronounced lan, L-A-N, yap, Y-A-P. That means something extra that you didn't expect. So maybe if you haven't resolved it, you give them a lunch gift certificate for $25 after the meeting and say, hey, I know we haven't resolved this yet. I still want to work on this with you. I still want to resolve your problem. It's important to me. But in the meantime, here's a $25 gift certificate. Go have lunch out on us, and we'll meet again. Be flexible. Consider a TO. Maybe another personality might help. Hard to know. Change the scenery. And if you have a really complicated one, I advocate that you go have a meal together. There's nothing like bonding over a meal. Once you do come to an agreement, shake hands, or the COVID equivalent, which is an elbow bump or a fist bump. This is really important if you go to prepare something, and then you come back and they change their mind, then you look at them and say, hey, we just shook hands on that. I'm confused, and then you're quiet. I'm confused. But so you shake hands to let them know that that you've made a deal. Consider putting the agreement in writing. You can do that with a release of all future claims. The release is for you and for them, for both, because you can have a mutual release. And if there are other items, make sure you follow up and follow through. Wrapping up with the customer, if they put something online that was a bad review, you say, hey, Mr. Customer, this is my dealership, and seeing these online reviews hurts my feelings because this is how I feed my family. So if you'd please consider updating your review to let people know we're not such bad guys after all, that'll help you sell more RVs in the future. When customers see that there was a problem, you posted a response, and then the customer updated and said that you fixed their problem. Customers really like that. It shows that you care, that you're trustworthy, that you're concerned about your reputation. So that's super important. And consider changes to your customer-facing paperwork. Consider your business processes and whether anything in your processes could be updated to reflect having the customer to come in to see you about changing, about fixing their problem. Instead of arbitration or mediation, can you be creative in a different way? Arbitration and mediation drives customers crazy, in my opinion. So I don't advocate that at all. If you'd like a copy of this presentation, please contact me. I'll be happy to email it to you. Or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and ask. I'm Tom Kline, and my company name is Better Vantage Point. So thanks for seeing things from a better vantage point.